Hey, so this time around I'm looking at Disney shows in particular. This is really tackling more, say, 2000s, 2010s. Not really going into, say, Marvel Cinematic or Disney Plus shows in particular, but more just as a 2000s baby, just different shows that might have watched or missed growing up. And yeah, just going through that. For starters, let's look at say DuckTales. I can't say I'm too familiar with this IP, so I'll have to place it here. Similar case with this one here. For Mickey Mouse, I would say for this, it's of course I know like what Mickey Mouse is, but I'd say I've never seen this animation in style before. In addition to just more of the showings as a kid growing up, or it just doesn't bring back any memories for me. For this one, I'd say I'd place it high up here in A. I'd say for this one, it was about a kid that also is able to transform into a dragon in New York. Otherwise, and there's more of like a supernatural nature to it as he just fends off just New York, just he fends off different people, oh, just like the supernatural in addition to other things, and really making an interesting cast in terms of the show in particular. I think going from there, let's look at different ones. This one, I am not sure what this IP is whatsoever, so I will place it here. Say, I'd say this is a good B. I would say for this one, it's that I wouldn't say the episodes are too familiar with me, but I do remember bits and pieces here and there, but not so much in which there's like a bunch of, say, like references that I'd still remember or like different gimmicks throughout the show or different characters that I connect with. Say, similar to like Sweet Life of Zack and Cody or Jessie or different ones. So I'd say it's a strong B for me at least, more so in terms of not having a connection to it. From here, can't say I'm familiar. I'd say Lab Rats I'd place at an A. I'd say for this show, I like the premise overall, so it's more so there's like this really rich person in which he has a bunch of these more like robots slash bio like I guess like cyborg type people that otherwise coexist with him in his like how do I put this, like they coexist with him in terms of his living space, and the heir to the really rich guy just discovers this altogether, and it's just about his endeavors just with the different cyborg people and just the different adventures or different side quests they're on overall. That was a really bad synopsis for the show, but I'd say it captured my attention enough where I would somewhat watch it here and there enough to just get a general sense of like what happens episode to episode. For this one, okay, so for this one, this is the Mickey Mouse that I'm more familiar with. In addition to like, say you like see random like cut out of context like TikToks for it, like I fully remember what it stems from and have some memories of it growing up at least. This one I cannot say I'm too familiar with. Gravity Falls, I have never watched, but it's definitely on the watch list as I'm a huge fan of the premise. Just Dipper and Mabel and how they're more involved in the supernatural space and they're going with like their uncle and just like and they uncover all these different things. I'm speaking really broadly because I'm only familiar really with the premise and not so much having seen it myself. but definitely on the watch list here for me. For this one, I cannot say I'm familiar. For this one, I can't say I've watched it, but I have seen the movie just like with Tadashi, Hiro, and just the different characters in the ensemble. But I can't say I knew that there was a TV series for it in particular. Being from here, can't say I'm familiar. Similar here. Similar with this one, this one. Hmm. I think I vaguely remember Shake It Up. It had Bella Thorne and then Zendaya in it, and it's very much them wanting to make it big as I want to say it's like dance and choreography in particular, and just being able to follow their adventures through it. I I like how for like all these big shows, it's about just like teenagers who are trying to do X, Y, and Z. Like say like Hannah Montana, it's like pop star in addition to just like everyday teenager. For iCarly, which is like a Nickelodeon series, it's more so like, oh, this is a social media influencer who also happens to be, well, everyday teenager. And sort of just like remixing it with just like different things. Because Zeke and Luther is very much the same, except like now it's skateboarders. And similar to that with just like different shows in particular. I guess it's just like to be expected to be somewhat formulaic, but that was somewhat interesting to take away at least. This one I can't say I'm familiar, or I'd say for this I've never watched it. Phineas and Ferb, I place this as like a first S tier one at least. I like how a lot of times there's just like music, just musical elements to the episodes, but they also flesh out the different characters within the show where you just get a full understanding of them. Like even with just like Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz in addition to Perry the Platypus, like they fully built that out as just like not just a gimmick, but just like a constant theme in the show. Like they even flesh out like their Doofenshmirtz, which is like his partner in addition to like his daughter, like sort of like humanizing him as a person, just like you can understand like how he eventually became a villain, why he wants to rule the tri-state area, and how he lives in a shadow of say like Sib like his brother in particular, in addition to just fleshing out just say similarly like Jeremy like Candace's like romantic interest and just like all the different characters like Phineas and Ferb has a lot to it, and I can appreciate how much effort was put into that. And just like all the like, how do I put this? I guess just like every episode is really distinct in some way, and it makes it something to look forward to every so often. Mm, say, let's see. I feel bad for this because I feel like this would definitely rank within S or A where I have watched it, but I can't say I have seen it. I've heard really good things about the series, though, in particular. My understanding is that Lizzie McGuire has a cartoonish alter ego that sort of shows itself throughout the series, and that's how they demonstrate the character in particular. Can't say I'm familiar with it. I'd say place it like an A. I'd say I watched a good sum of like reruns for Austin and Ally, but I'd say it's enough where it's I get a general gist of what the show is about, and you can just tune in one episode just without having watched different ones. Like plot progression wise, there's a lot of like fluff entertainment and comedic episodes in addition to trying to build out the plot. But it's enough where you can just like mindless like tune in one episode, not having seen previous ones, being able to go from there. That's my memory of it, at least. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd say for this one, I want to say it's like a comfort one where it's wasn't that deep, and I don't think, well, in my opinion, it wasn't as influential as say like Phineas and Ferb or different other ones at least. But I have more positive or yeah, more positive opinions of it at least. This one can't say I'm familiar with. Say I'm familiar with. Mm, I'd say I'd place it slightly higher because I remember this one was more of a staple when I remember growing up. I think for me with this one, I just don't particularly remember the plot. Like that's the thing. Was this the one where she's trying to get on the TV show? Let's see. Yeah, she's trying to get on a TV show, which it's like a sketch comedy type, and it's following her endeavors. And so random would be said sketch TV show if I'm able to loop it back correctly. I think for this one, I have good memories of like particular scenes, but I could not really remember in terms of like the big picture of what was going on. But I feel like that's more me when I was watching it at time being at least. Montana, I'll place in like S tier. I'd say for this show, can I enjoyed the plot elements of it in terms of like here's Hannah Montana who is like this alter ego of what's otherwise just like a regular student, and them being able to play around with that. And I think it was really good for its time. And I can't say there's like similar ones in production nowadays. Mm, and I think for Hannah Montana, all I remember was like the drama element connected with it, just like Miley Miley Cyrus after the fact of the show, like posthumously, like her music career, etc. But that's not what this is about. But I feel like a lot of my memories of Hannah Montana or like of some of these shows would be just like what these different actors or like different people who are part of these productions did after the fact. But standalone, it was a really good show in particular, though, from my memory. Although let's see, I would place Jessie a bit higher, in particular. I think for this one, I think I just liked it all as a premise a bit more. It's about like girl Jessie and how she's taking care of these different kids in particular. My understanding is she's either a new college grad and or more like a high school grad, but she's now in charge of being a nanny for all these different kids. And I think for this show, I think the character that I liked most was definitely like Bertram, because I know the actor for him. He went to his alma mater, which I want to say he was speaker for Rutgers at within recent. I hate this is just my keyword. Ah, okay. I feel bad. I just blanked out entirely. I feel like he did a commencement, if I remember correctly. Yeah, he most recently he did a commencement for class of 2023. But I just loved the energy that he gave in terms of like every single episode in particular, and being able to do that. I'd say like similarly, you could see that through like the entire cast. Like they were pretty memorable in their own right. Can't say I'm familiar. Some more for this one. I'd say Ant Farm. I'd place maybe A-ish. I'd say for this, I can't say I'm too familiar with the plot as a whole. I just remember it was like set in a school type setting, and they did play off of like the major archetypes of just different people as a whole. But I can't say I'm too familiar with like the series as a whole in this instance.
Okay, I found this on the web for the series has a hole in. Check it out.
Oh boy. Uh, that did not. Yeah, I think going back to Antform, it's more so I don't really remember the individual episodes, or, but I just got a general sense of the plot premise. So I guess I'll just notch it down one. But I do remember it has more like positive impressions for me growing up, at least. Can't say I'm familiar. On deck. Sweet Life on. Mm, I think I'll place Sweet Life on deck a notch lower, as I like how they introduce different characters. If I remember correctly, like Mr. Mosby, London, in addition to some other characters were there. I feel like they introduced a character named like Woody. Yeah, okay. Yeah, in addition to like different characters that would just like I support them, but at the same time, I feel like this was more. I know it's more like after the fact of like Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, just more building upon like Cody and his relationship with. Her name escapes me, but I think it was Debbie Ryan's character, if I'm mistaken. In addition to just like Zack being Zack and just seeing them mature as people. I think my connection with Sweet Life on Deck was more so. I want to say they did a movie and it involved like dolphins in one capacity or another. And I think that was like my only real connection to like Sweet Life on Deck. But I'd say solely on like the connection of like Sweet Life with Zack and Cody slot it like right below. Otherwise, I can't say I connected with it as much as the original in particular. Same familiar. I've heard of it, just not familiar. Okay, I'd say for Wizards, I'd place definitely S tier wise. I do remember good bits of it, just like Selena Selena Gomez, in addition to just like how it focuses on her family in particular, and how you're able to see how fleshed out the different characters are, and just like different character arcs they're going through, just like in just like the school type setting, but also like fleshing out like the family at home in addition to like the whole conflict that occurs within the series. I think similar to say like Austin Alley or just like different comedies here. I like how you can just sort of turn your brain off and just tune in on a random episode and not be entirely lost. But I'd say for Wizards, it's definitely up there for me at least. I feel like I know a lot about like the lore of the cast like after the fact because I know they run like a podcast, like do like rewatches or like different things as a whole, and I think I really do appreciate that overall. But it just shows me just the legacy the show has as a whole and how it still stays relevant to the day. Side tangent per usual. Say from here, this one not familiar. I can't say I've watched this one, but it rings a bell. I feel like for some of these shows, I've just rate them based on like how good how good like the memes or like different content that you're able to pull apart from these shows are. But same time, I'm trying to see them as just like shows in itself, like independent of that, and just like the fan base and different things, just like standalone, like this show, like how did you like it? How did you enjoy it? And different things. I'd say Korean House I definitely place like higher up here though. From here, sure. For this one, I'd say plot. Plot wise, I don't really remember, but the faces do look familiar to me in terms of like the actors, different people. I can't say I've seen it. Okay, I think for Sweet Life, Zach and Cody, I'd definitely place it really up here. I'd say individually, I do remember like different characters. Like there's Maddie, London, Mr. Mosby, Esteban, Zach, Cody, and you just sort of wonder how they just like manifest all these different random episodes. Just like it is all set in this hotel and pretty much just focuses on just like random side quests they're doing or random like shenanigans or Zach being a delinquent or like Cody being a know-it-all or just like random stuff they get themselves into. But as a kid, just not knowing any better, I'm just like, oh, cool, this looks like a fun watch, and just going through it. I'd definitely say this was really memorable to me in terms of like more sheer like entertainment value wise. Like it holds the traits of like prior ones before. Like you don't need to know anything about it. Just tune in randomly, and it'll be a good watch in particular. I'd say definitely up there in particular, but I like the show in its like infancy in particular. I I try to like still judge it like independent of just like what Dylan and Cole Sprouse and just like different people are doing now because it's like I'd say I somewhat follow celeb stuff where it's like vaguely know like what Dylan and Cole Sprouse are up to, whether it's just like acting stuff afterwards or just like random business stuff or I think it's just like the connection you have to these actors as a whole sort of speaks volumes into like the show as a whole. It's just like people are invested in these people, like more like after the fact in particular. There, I feel like a lot of these are going to go in the what is this in terms of I've either aged out of it or they're beyond my time at least. Like for That's So Raven, I feel like this is such a missed opportunity for me because I know the plot of sort of like I think the word is like medium where you sort of like see the future that type. I've just like never seen an episode of this, so just can't speak to it in particular. Right. So tough run at the end. Handy Manny, I cannot say I know am too familiar with. I'd say this is a B for me because I didn't have too much of a connection with it, and as much as I like how you can just like tune in randomly to an episode and just see what it's about, I just didn't feel too connected with the characters. But I do think that's like something that's really difficult if you're advertising it to say like elementary school or like even like younger than elementary. I'm sort of making an assumption here, but it's like it's very hard for me to like connect with these characters where I'm just not too familiar with them. Like Charlie place place like a middle of the A's. For this one, I feel like it reminds me a lot about just like what you see on like social media now, where it's just like a family documenting stuff on social media, but more so to the point of just overdoing it at times. But my understanding of Good Luck Charlie was every episode they'd want to like document like some like interesting tidbit or important takeaway for Charlie as a full grown adult to be able to like comprehend she's a full adult and how the cast and how the cast and show is meant to just have that magic takeaway every episode. But I think beyond that, just like a standard like family sitcom in particular, just following just like everyday endeavors of the different cast members in particular. Familiar, familiar. This has been a rough last stretch here, but we will end it on a high note. I'd say for Kim Possible, I definitely say I enjoyed it a good bit. I liked how I guess I liked how much they fleshed series out, where it's you even get to be familiar with like the gerbil character in addition to like Ron, Kim, and just like even like like main villain in addition to different people. But I think for this show in particular, I like how a lot of it is really relevant in the media today, and a lot of say like what I see on like TikTok through memes or just like different things in particular. Like I sort of parallel it with speaking from like my mind, just like say like Jimmy Neutron, where it's like say you'll see like a Carl meme and you'll be like, oh hey, I remember that. That's funny to me. Similarly, I'll see that with like say like Kim Possible or just like any number of these shows in particular. I think for Kim Possible, at least it was one of the first I'd say like first like cartoon, action, comedy sort of ones that wasn't specifically like superhero ones for me. And I really appreciated that for what it's worth. I think that's about enough rambling for me for today, but yeah, thanks for tuning in. Hope you had a good holiday or extended break, Christmas, New Year, etc. Otherwise, but yeah, that's uh, enough from me today. But thanks again, and as always, don't forget to be awesome.